I'll have to remember it Wednesday because it is now 11 o'clock. Lake Wales, Florida is above the fault line, below frost, and seems to miss hurricanes. Also central to most of Florida, and property is cheap. Lake Wales used to be expensive, I thought. You put the lime in the coconut. The Devil Dark Night, I made coconut lime soap, and I dare anybody to smell it and not have that song go through their head. I just made it a couple days ago. I love white beaches at Sanibel Island. Yes, I never got to go out there because they wanted $20 to ride out on the ferry or something. I was like, can't afford it. Charlie, what the heck's his name? He has a beard. He runs around barefoot all the time. He's a really good Bible teacher. The Superior Word is his church. And he teaches out of, just south of Tampa. I can't think of the name. I don't know why I can't, but it's Juno Beach, yeah. Yeah, the West Indian Rocks Beach is all shells. Remember, look at the beach. The entire beach was nothing but shell. Little shells, big shells. It was pretty amazing. And time goes really fast in Florida. I don't know why, but it speeds by. Good night, Tim Grooveman. Thank you for being here. I love you guys too. You're awesome. I'm in PT and it's going well. Good. Nerve pain tries to sneak back every now and then, but not near like it was. Praise the Lord. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Dad is on top of a 500-foot hill in Florida. He must be on top of Mount Dora. Oh, boy. So anyway, I'm going to say goodnight to you guys. I see that the crew's coming in, and Thumper has his spacesuit on. He's ready to blast off in his TR-3B. You guys tell me if that does not look like his spacesuit. One, if it looks like a spacesuit, you guys.
It's Under Armour.
I don't care. It looks like a spacesuit. It looks like you're dolled up to get on your spaceship and go.
We went out and did a little, making sure the guns were sighted in today. Put a few rounds down range, and so this is my my cold gear. And I figured, you know what the heck? I'll just wear it for the show tonight.
Getting ones out there. I agree. Much love to you guys out there. It was a great night. Thank you for hanging with me, and I will see you all Wednesday, God willing, and much love to you all. You hang out there and have a great time. Oh, hi there, Mr. Indigo. How are you? Thank you. Sounds like you're going to have a good show tonight. What's going on?
Oh, we got a couple of things lined up here, and so we're going to kick it. Paul was taking the night off. He was on the road a long time. He's still on the road. And so I said, just, get some rest, take, because, he's only 1 hour closer to me than Indigo here. So they're putting a lot on the line to be here. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and kick the tires, light the fires. Good evening, everyone. How you doing? And welcome to Hyperdrive, another edition, the Monday night Hyperdrive. And Dee Dee Haugen, Panorific, Billy the Kid, Tina Anon, good evening. Serpentine Anon, GSVT, Jill K, how are you doing? Awkward Mama. Chairman Mammy is out there, Two Rivers Crossing, and Slick Sticks, how you doing? And Buster Keaton, of course. Okay, so we got that done. Let's, if I can get, gosh, my Zoom is working really slow right now. All right. Would everyone report? Would everyone report to the TR3B? Take your seats. Please stow your gear in the overhead racks, please, or underneath the seat. Make sure it's all secure. Once that's secure, make sure your seat backs are in the upright position in your tabletops as well. And then please buckle up, and we'll be departing the gate here in just a few moments. So are you ready? 3, 2, 1. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at our destination, so please, you may get up and move around the cabin freely. There are monitors all about the cabin, so you can keep an eye on the program. Thank you very much, and let's get going here.
How you doing tonight, Thumper?
I am doing fantastic. How are you, Indigo?
I am okay. Good to see you.
Did you get a nap this evening?
I thought about getting a nap, then I started working on computers, and 3 hours went by like that.
It had, yeah, I know that feeling.
Yep.
Oh, so well, let's see. It's been a few days since we last talked. I think it was Wednesday night when we last talked, and since then they tried blowing up Nashville. What do you think?
Wow. False flag event for sure, something meant to distract us from what's really going on. And of course, that did happen. But it just seems like a great opportunity to take people's minds off of the election tabulations. And there's only a precious few days left before this is all going to have to get brought out or resolved one way or the other. So distracting people. If people weren't off balance enough because of social distancing and locking down and Fauci telling people don't get together for Christmas, stuff like that, then, this just adds one more log on the fire, in my opinion.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that the AT&T building there had something to do with the Georgia elections, and that's what a lot of people are considering is the whole scheme behind what happened in Nashville.
Well, I heard that too, but as for exactly what was in there, what do you think was in there anyway?
Well, it had the NSA listening facility that was traced, that the NSA has been using to surveil the American people.
But was there anything stored there?
Well, they got the contract for the voting machines, and the voting machines were supposedly on there to be transported there from Georgia. So there's a lot of things that indicate that there was reason. And then did you hear about the message that when played backwards? Did you hear what it came out when it played backwards?
Yes. Crystal and I were listening to that the other night. We must have played it about 25 times. Amazing what was in that, isn't it? You heard it too, I take it.
Oh yeah. Well, I was on with Salty after the Hyperdrive show Sunday or Saturday evening. I stayed with her for about an hour and a half, and that video came in, and we said, And Salty got the idea. What happens if we play it backwards? So she knows how to, she's into music and all that. She knows she's got some nice programs there that can put in filters and different things, right? And so she said, well, let's do it. So she picked out that section and ran it backwards. And we heard the Merry Christmas to all. And we went, what? We went, holy crap. And
the significant thing is that you get that when you play it backwards. I heard that too. And there were a few other words that we puzzled over for a while trying to figure out what they were.
Yeah. And that we couldn't figure that the beginning words where it said, are you ready? Are you ready? It's going to happen fast. And then it went into Merry Christmas to all. Are you ready? Merry Christmas to all. I think is how, or some variation of that anyway.
Yep. And
it was like, holy moly, because we heard that first part, we just couldn't quite make it out what it said, but it was the "Are you ready?" And so yeah, very, very interesting, and it kind of says to me that what bad guy would put that in a message?
Who would put that much thought into something like that and reversing it too?
Yeah. And then there was a woman that did she did an interview with Anderson Cooper on CNN. And she lived in an apartment across the street from the AT&T building.
Oh.
All right. And she actually took video out of her window just shortly after the blast, which she didn't have any problem with that because all the glass in her window was gone. And when she turned her phone around and scanned her apartment looked like it had been ransacked. But she said the voice sounded feminine, but it was mechanical. It was a digitized voice, which means the digitized voice. If they digitized the voice, then that means they also embedded that message in there as well. And then the RV had been sitting, and that was the message supposedly being broadcast from the RV. And that RV had been sitting there for like a day or a day and a half or something like that.
Utterly amazing.
Yeah, there's just
so many questions.
So many things about that. Yeah, it's just it's a real head scratcher, to be sure. And then to find out it probably wasn't a bomb. A lot of people are saying, a lot of military people are saying it was a missile that did that.
And did we see one photo? And I didn't look closely, but did we see one photo where it looked like something was coming in to that site, to that location? It looked like something might have been shot in there right about at that time at an angle, about a 30-degree angle from above.
Well, yeah.
And I don't know if that was real either.
Okay. Now, my understanding of that, and I was just explaining it on Chris's program, somebody has, because, you know, I mean, I was doing my Magnum straight shooting show Christmas morning when this whole thing started. So I was on this thing as soon as we heard about it, and I spent almost 3.5 hours, you know, covering it. And that video popped up, and when I first saw that video, it was in color. Nobody had done a color filter on it, right, like everybody's seeing now. Everybody's seeing the one with the color filter on it, but it was in color. So blue sky, white clouds, a red, that semi that goes through the scene is red, by the way. And I was watching the video of that, and I noticed that stream coming down. And the first time they ran it, I went, wait a minute. My eyes said that stream ejected up. Okay. But my suspicion, you know, based on other things that we've seen, and, you know, I said, did it really go up or did it go down? So they played it again. I watched it very closely, and that stream actually goes up. It doesn't come in and go down. Okay.
That would make sense. Some piece of shrapnel was flying out of that location.
There appeared to be some little black object right at the tip of it. And I thought that possibly it was a burning piece of asphalt or some large burning piece, because it appeared to go up at a very high velocity. I mean, it only took a few milliseconds, not even a full second, probably.
Yep.
Okay. Now, I've gotten some information, and a lot of people are saying this was what they call a hyperbaric missile. Okay. And, and President Trump's been saying, we have hypersonic missiles and stuff like that, right? So you never saw anything come in because, well, first off, security camera video only operates at how many frames per second? Very slow frame rate, though.
15 if you're lucky, but that's only after it spots motion.
Right. Okay. So at that slow frame rate, something moving extremely fast, you're lucky. You're going to be lucky if you catch it.
Yeah, a couple of frames.
Maybe, if you're lucky.
Yep.
If you want to catch a you know, I know with my video camera, I've got a really nice little Sony camera here, you know, and I can get it up to, I think, 120 frames per second. And I can barely catch a 308 rifle round hitting a jug of water.
Which is really fast. So how can we make a synopsis of all of the details and facts that we have here if this was indeed some sort of a hyperbaric missile, which it may or may not have been? For it to be going up and out, what would its target be?
Okay, here's the deal. The type of missile that and somebody verified that we do have this type of a missile. What it does, it's designed to create a massive concussion. All right, not necessarily a blast, but a concussion wave.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and so what you saw was just prior to it hitting and going off, it ejects out this stream of very, very flammable substance.
Energetic material.
Okay. And then when it goes off, that material ignites at just a tremendous rate. And what it does is it sucks all the oxygen out of the air. And then, you know, so you not only have the blast wave, but then you have this implosion effect as well. So
which also creates a sonic effect that could, cause windows or whatever else to shatter.
And they did. I mean, it shattered every window in the area. And people heard it from miles around. I mean, there were reports. One of the news casters that was on the scene there said they were at the airport, which is several miles away, and they heard it and felt it. And then, they came in and were covering it on the scene. But people reported it several miles away. So what happens is this missile, as it comes in, it just before it ejects at a high, just spews this stuff out. And so you see that jet stream out,
right,
going up.
But that's basically what's laying the material out that's going to become the shock wave, right?
Exactly. And then you see that stream. It almost like it gets sucked right down to the base again. If you watch it really closely, it's like it's getting sucked back down to the base. Would, as it's igniting,
that would support your thesis.
It just draws it all back in. Then if you watch the videos on the street, there's some really good street videos of the explosion. And what was really kind of freaking me out was you had stuff being thrown out, but then you had the smoke and the fumes and everything seemed to be getting sucked back in very quickly. So it was like, basically what it does is it creates the front side and the back side of a hurricane. You know how the wind blows one way, and then it comes back. And what didn't get, yanked out of the ground, being blown east to west, now gets sucked out of the ground by the wind blowing west east,
Right.
And, but this happened.
So maybe the mechanics of it is the flare goes up and it sets out into the immediate vicinity of the atmosphere, the air right around there, a bunch of material that all at once it's going to then create an implosion. So initially there's a slight explosion, but then it has laden all of the air in that area with this material that's all going to ignite at once. And when it does, it's going to consume all the oxygen and cause a mega implosion. So the second part of it would be much more energetic than the first part, which is the first part of it is really just dispersing it to set up part two, which is the implosion. Sounds like what you're saying.
And then you combine that with some of the understanding that I have is that building has a tremendous number of, major computers, supercomputers, whatever you want to have, whatever you want to talk about. And they use the river just a block and a half away as part of their cooling system for all these computers.
Sure.
And the viaduct that goes from the building to the river, I would assume, was right below where that explosion was.
Mm-hmm.
And so the concussion from that
transmitted through the viaduct. Shutting down the cooling system for their supercomputers.
Their supercomputers get overheated and go burp.
Yeah.
And because I think the good guys were concerned that they were going to try to wipe the computers clean or something like that, or they were going to wipe the voting machines, and basically it shut them down from being able to do that. That's just my assumption at this point.
The thing of it is, don't we have enough compelling evidence of various levels of malfeasance already, so that with or without what happened there in Nashville, it would seem like there ought to be enough if the case was properly brought and was properly prosecuted. Wouldn't you think?
I don't think they're going to look to actually prosecute the case, especially in civilian courts. I think it's going to be prosecuted in the military courts.
Right.
But my assumption is, Indigo, is that they're still in the process of waking up the American people.
Right. Yeah. Give up on the civilian courts. I'm thinking there was a judge someplace that dismissed something like 270 pages of solid evidence today and said, "No, sorry, not interested."
Yeah.
Right.
So,
it's going to play out. It's going to play out. And the president is definitely privy to everything about this, much more than we can even guess. Because, of course, we shouldn't know all of it, because if we do, then the adversary learns it too. So there's a lot that we shouldn't really, that shouldn't be out in the public domain.
Mm-hmm. And just in answer to Pink Panther out there, he says, can you run the video through an inversion or contrast debris? I don't have, I'd have to open up my big editing suite, and with all the windows I've got open on the computer right now, my computer would be totally useless. So, so I don't get into doing all that sound and picture manipulation, because I'm terrible at it anyway. So sorry about that, Pink Panther.
Well, I'll bet you if Salty's listening, she's probably thinking about opening up a similar suite right now and doing exactly that.
Oh, she is. She's very, very good at all that stuff. She is. She does amazing stuff. So anyway, yeah, that whole thing there is, really extraordinary. And I don't know if I had mentioned to you on our phone call, but I have this thing about Nashville and explosions, because in 1997, my parents were on vacation in Nashville, October 10th, 1997 to be exact, and they were walking down the street about 2 blocks from where this happened, and a transformer that was in the sidewalk was energized. What they didn't know about the transformer was that it had water inside of it, and it blew up. And there was a 2-story high ball of flame of burning dielectric insulating oil that
shooting out the manhole cover.
Coming out. Well, it's actually one of the vaults in the sidewalk. They had installed the
those big square things?
Yeah.
That are sort of subterranean to the sidewalk?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a concrete vault, and it's got concrete slabs that covered the top of it, but they had not put the slabs on there. They were
servicing it or something.
Well, they had installed it. They were building a NASCAR cafe, kind of on the lines of the Hard Rock Cafe, only it was NASCAR themed.
Right.
And they had installed the it's big, like walk-in refrigerator sized transformer down in that vault, and the vault didn't have any drainage in it, and they had massive rains in Nashville that spring, and the vault had filled up several times, and they pumped it out, and those transformers are supposed to be watertight. Unfortunately, this one was not. And my parents happened to be walking past. They had routed the people off of the sidewalk using police tape and routed them down the parking lane and then back onto the sidewalk because the vault was only covered by plywood.
Right.
And they ignited it when my parents were immediately adjacent to that vault.
Oh, my gosh.
And both mom and dad were burnt very, very badly. They were not supposed to have survived. I had Christmas dinner with mom and talked to dad on the phone. So they survived it miraculously. I mean,
thank God. Thank God. That's wonderful.
They should.
But boy, a lot of injuries sustained there.
Oh, a lot. There was a gentleman. There was a construction worker that was working right above the doorway, which was right above the vault. It's a funny thing. Same thing with this AT&T building. There were several vaults and openings in the sidewalk right in front of the front door. That's kind of a theme in Nashville, I guess. But this vault was right in front of the main entrance to this new cafe, and this guy was on a ladder painting it right above the doorway, and so he was like in a blowtorch. He didn't survive.
My gosh.
Yeah, it was horrific. It made national news. This
type of thing is not supposed to happen, though. Waterproof transformers, right? And then there's going to be detection circuitry that gives a readback to the people in the electrical control room that there's some sort of a ground fault there. And then they trace it, and then they shut down power on that loop.
It happened so fast. When they inspected the inside of the transformer, what they found was there was a rust line from the water in there, so they could tell exactly how much water was in there. And there was only like maybe 1/8 of an inch of insulating oil between the bus bar that had 17,800 volts on it and the water, which was not enough to insulate the potential of 17,800 volts.
Right.
And so it shorted, steamed the water immediately, instantaneously, which blew the covers of the transformer off. It just blew the bolts off the covers. And then as soon as that oil escaped and there was more air, it ignited. There was still enough heat and or electricity there to ignite the oil, and then you had this massive 2-story high ball of flame came flying up out of the sidewalk, and
no time to react to that, Thumper. It happened just almost instantaneously.
Exactly. So it was so when I'm going, explosion, Nashville, what?
Yeah, perks your ears right up. Right.
Oh yeah. Oh, thank you, Shelley. Yes, I had a really nice sat here and covered Nashville all morning long. That was my Christmas morning. But it was interesting. Made for a very, very interesting day. So anyway, so this whole Nashville thing's kind of got my attention in more ways than one, if you get what I mean there. And so there's more to the story here, and well,
as we in aggregate and in individual small groups, we try to make sense of all of the facts. The thing that keeps coming to my mind is that all of these puzzle pieces really do fit together somehow. Mm-hmm. They really do. We're working at it, and we've put quite a few of them together, but they do fit together. These things are related somehow. There are very few actual coincidences, especially when we see something like this.
Yeah.
So we know it was purposeful. We don't quite understand all the possible reasons why, but we have a lot of us thinking about it, don't we?
Yeah. And you put that I don't like calling it a hive mind, but a collective mind of people that are just digging to try to find another piece of the truth. And as you draw in all of the things that we find, some are don't fit, some do, but you slowly bring the picture together.
Well, in the case of the kind of a collective mind that we might all consider ourselves to be, in this case, resistance is not futile because opposing points of view are welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And those are really good to bring to the mainstream of the discussion forum, because by way of that, we get closer and closer to the actual truth.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally on board with that. I love sitting around a room spitballing with people, war gaming something,
because you'll think of something that someone else didn't think of, and then you throw that into the mix, and then multiple minds are all considering that, and it either gets shot down or it carries the conversation. You know what I mean? It goes one way or the other, and multiple minds are so much stronger than any one isolated. So,
well, it's
really,
fun. When you bring it up, really good example of that was there's I don't know if you've run across Gene. He's doing a lot of decode.
Oh yeah, he comes up with some amazing stuff.
Right. And he was coming on the show for a while, and we were doing deep underground based decodes and some other stuff.
Yeah.
I've had some really amazing conversations on the phone as well. And but he's doing these underground bases, and he says, the only thing that just, how do they build these underground bases? And I said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, it takes people, it takes manpower to build these underground bases. How they get away with it, and nobody really knows anything about it.
Exactly. How do you keep it all secret?
Yeah.
And Thumper, the comings and goings of raw materials coming in and out of that site. I mean, aren't people seeing big big triaxle trucks of material and concrete and stuff going to and fro?
Yeah. So, how do you cover that up?
I don't know.
Well, but I kind of solved the manpower problem. Okay. We have 800,000 children a year going missing in this world, right? Or in the United States, actually, a year. Okay. And those children are used for all sorts of, crazy, stupid, satanic, whatever. And, but what if you take a few thousand off here and there? I mean, you got 800,000. I mean, what's 1,000, new slaves? Even if they're only 4 years old, you raise them up, you train them, you indoctrinate them the way you want them. These people never see daylight. They're taken down into these areas, and they're trained to do what they need them to do. And, it's a disposable workforce.
It's scary to think that even happens, but it may.
Well, compared to some of the other stuff that they do with these abductees, that's probably one of the lesser of the evils that these people experience. Some of them don't last, a year, before they're murdered, tortured, whatever. It's just, it's really super creepy. But when I mentioned that to Gene, he went, "Whoa, I never thought of that." But that's what happens when you have, people just, well, I had this idea. What do you think of this? And I kind of threw it at him. He went, "Whoa." But that's, when you get people talking. And
with advanced technology that we might not be aware of, even partly aware of, it might minimize the amount of manpower needed, and there could be such things as tunnel boring machines that are nuclear powered that can bore through solid rock and then turn the dross from that into the wall of the tunnel. You really might, it's all about the technology and the machinery, and that's not even getting into anything extra dimensional.
Well, I have heard we do have machines like that. They do have tunnel boring machines.
Yep.
That can bore at quite speedy rates. And I've been thinking about giving Gene a call, Jill K. So, yeah, well, we'll just have to see if maybe he'd like to come back on. Not sure what he's up to. I get emails from him, and
yeah, listening to him when I've tuned in, the things that he comes up with and puts together, they just blow my mind.
That's pretty wild, isn't it?
I don't even know how he gets all the information, but he sure does back it up fairly well.
He does. So there's so much more, I had a couple of other stories that I kind of had to choose from for tonight. And have you ever followed Source of Fall?
Negative.
Yeah, because you kind of have to be careful. It's supposedly coming out of Russia and everything, and you have to be, use some discernment when you're watching it. But recently, it's been pretty spot on. But one of their reports here about, it actually came out November 7th. Just after the election, and they were talking about Camp. I think it's called Camp Clark.
Looking that up right now.
And let's see, did I?
Nebraska.
Yeah. Well.
Or Arizona. There were a couple of them.
This one is it was where they were doing maintenance and refurbishment and upkeep on our nuclear arsenal back in the 60s and the 70s. Okay, and it has recently been identified as being pretty much abandoned. But it sits on top of a massive cave system. It's in Kentucky, and it's kind of in the north. I think it's the northwestern corner of Kentucky, which, and that borders on Missouri and Michigan and all that area in there. Which is notorious for underground salt mines and caves and all kinds of stuff like that, right? There's supposedly like 190 miles of caves down there, large, massive caves. And there's like, was it 3 million guns have been
million?
Yeah. 3 million guns have been purchased, and the belief is that they are sequestered there, and they are part of a basically an armory that was being put together by patriots, former military personnel, and active duty personnel that saw the handwriting on the wall and were stockpiling all these armaments in that area. You want to go woo woo? There you go, man. And the interesting part of that story, and it's something I just learned today, and I haven't. A friend of mine says he has the information on it, but he didn't get it emailed over to me. But you're familiar with USAA?
Yes.
Okay. The military, insurance company.
Yep.
Yeah. Did you know they're one of the biggest banks as well?
Oh yeah, a lot of people use that as a credit union or for their checking accounts.
Yes.
Yep.
Huge, highly successful bank. But they recently sold. But according to my friend, he's got some information that indicates that these guys from USAA were part of the funding for these guns, and gets pretty pretty incredible when you start going down those.
For some reason, they think that's a good investment.
I was out at the range today.
Mm-hmm.
My rifle was sighted in. So there's just so many things going on right now, and lots of stories. You have to kind of use your discernment and trying to figure out which is where does truth stop and the lies start, or the story begin, whichever the case may be. As with so many things in our world right now, I don't know. Do you kind of feel the same way?
Yeah. It's we certainly don't want to become jaded and close ourselves off to all the input that our brains can handle, but it requires that we have a better skill for critical thinking and discernment. Mm-hmm. Because you got to know that the adversaries are out there just trying to obfuscate and confuse everything, and so that would really work well for them. That when you do really hit upon something that's true, you may have either confused those around you or become so sidetracked by all the other stuff you might not recognize it. And so it's a real job for us, is to be very careful about what it is that we are determining or discerning to be true, and then even check it again after we think that it's true, and check it against other people's views as well and their evidence. Have to stay open. This is a time in our world when it will serve us very well to hone the best of the rational, logical skills that we have, while not losing our intuition and our heart either. It's really a very challenging but an amazing time for us to grow. That's my feeling right about now.
Well, it's kind of like taking like an alarm clock, a lawnmower, and a copy machine, taking them all apart down to just the bare pieces, throwing it all into a box, and saying, okay, now inside this box, there's an alarm clock, a lawnmower. Can you put it back together? and use all the parts, and no extra parts when you get finished.
Yeah, interesting analogy. And given enough time, aren't you certain that a person could do that, or group together with a few other like-minded, in your example, mechanically oriented people? Aren't you just certain that sooner or later we'd get it done?
Well, and that's the nice thing about the group that we have that listens to our shows, your shows, any of these shows out here, each one of us has a certain expertise, and they're going to look at a part of that in that box, and they're going to go, oh yeah,
they'll recognize it.
Yeah, that goes to the lawnmower.
Yep.
Oh, that goes to the alarm clock. And so that group knowledge that's there, when put together, can slowly bring the whole thing together.
Would you call that a brain trust? Is that a proper use of the term? A brain trust of many people, many minds, different areas of expertise?
That's probably a good way to put it. Yeah. I think that's a really good way to put it.
Well, we're really lucky to be here right now at this time, in this age, and it's probably no accident that it is this group that's here now at this time with everything that's going on.
Yeah. And I think that's what General Flynn had in mind when he, said we need a digital army.
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of the reason for Q, figuring out a way to engage that digital army to come together for truth, basically.
Right.
And with the few inspirational posts along the way, to kind of keep light the fire and keep it going, and at the same time, kind of a back channel way of informing people that something is going on, and it appears to be our prayers have been answered. In that, I mean, I know I wished all the time. I says, how much crazier does it have to get before people, just go, there's something seriously wrong here.
But when is critical mass of enough people going to all in unison say there's something seriously wrong? Because what we're trying to do is get it to critical mass, because then it takes off by itself.
Yes.
And not to sidetrack the show, the Hyperdrive show tonight, but relative to all of the additional information about the Wuhan virus and how to manage it and how to mitigate it, and various treatments and methods and things that we have at our disposal to use. But at the same time, we see that there's a definite slant, which way we're kind of forced or pushed to go in our thinking. And I resist that. I try to stay middle of the road, objective, and look at some of the background science behind other medicines and pharmaceuticals and other vitamins and minerals that have been used with that. And I don't want to sidetrack us on that, but it floors me when I see that those things are completely shelved and sidelined, and we just need people to look at all of the evidence, all the facts, and I think that we maybe still a lot of us still suffer from the idea that somehow when they see it on television or on a news broadcast, somehow a mainstream media national newscast, it's just automatically more believable as valid and credible. And it just isn't always. Excuse me. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. And that particularly applies to the manipulation of some of what we've seen going on in the tracking and the 8-month history of that virus and how it's affected us. But I don't want to take us off topic.
Oh no, that's fine. These are the kind of conversations these make great shows anyway. But not that we don't have something else. But you and I are about the same age, I think. We're baby boomers. We'll just leave it there.
Yes, mature baby boomers. Let's say that. Yeah. Very mature.
Okay. And so when we were kids, who was voted the most trusted person in the world?
Gee, Walter Cronkite.
Yippers, you go to the head of the class, And so they started that very early on by convincing us that this one man, this very stately, great voice, great presentation, all of this stuff was, Mr. You can trust what he says. Never mind the fact that he was a member of the CFR and blah blah.
No kidding, right?
And then you had what was it? CNN. That was their tagline, right? The most trusted name in news. They've been convincing us that they're the most trusted name in news. And where that's the only place you get your news, you have to trust that these people are there bringing you real, honest reporting on the news. And when you find out that they were producing it in the basement of CNN, when they were doing reports of bombing in the Middle East, and it was actually a stage set in the basement of CNN, you start to go, holy crap. And we fell for it.
We've been conditioned over a period of decades that, and I currently hear friends say, well, I'm going to choose to believe this. And right there, the bells go off in my mind. And I say, okay, you just said believe. Now, I don't even dare ask you why. All right. So when one utilizes belief as the superlative governing influence, that now subordinates logic, evidence, discovery, and, personal weighing up of all the facts, because one just decided to believe. I'm going to believe Anderson Cooper. Well, wow. If that's your choice, we're done. I don't know what I can do for you. I mean, I can try to inspire you to formulate internal questions and look for inconsistencies and then investigate those. But that's going to take some work that a person would have to invest in doing. And then one has to weigh up, is it worth the work, or would I rather be blissfully deceived with something that I'm comfortable with, but it's just wrong?
Right.
It's not based in anything that you can source to reality. So we've been conditioned to, and many of us around us say, well, I want to believe this one, I want to believe that one. And I want to say, stop, don't believe me. You know what I mean? Don't believe me. And I don't need to believe you, but we can hammer it out, and, we can whittle it down and, chop it up and put the pieces together and see what it is. And I would respect and trust the procedure of doing that tremendously, because then we would have arrived at something that two of us had passed our gates, our internal intellectual gates of validity. And we said, okay, well, there's two of us that think this. Let's go get someone else and run it by them. By the time you get 20, 50, or 100 people and they all say, you know what, that's just what it is, now we're fairly sure. But when you get one person like, the Walter Cronkite of the world, and he says what it is and you just believe that, no.
Well, it falls in line with one of the things that we've come to figure out. When you listen to somebody that there's very few people that I actually totally trust, and because in every story there's a certain amount of truth and there's a certain amount of fiction in just about anything and everything. Depending on the bias of whoever is presenting it. All right. They're gonna tweak it a little bit if they don't like how this part of that story, they're gonna soften that or harden it up depending on what the effect of it, they need of it. So anyway, when early on, when we started doing hyperdrive, Dead Cat and I, we did we read a document. We didn't get all the way through it. It's called Feeding the Egregore.
Oh, I think I heard pieces of that. Yes.
And what I loved about that was that it said, its main gist was, keep an open mind. When you start to stand on a position, you have to realize, okay, what is it that you're standing on? Are you standing on solid ground, or are you standing on belief or a bias? And that's where the discernment comes in. And that article, that writing was so spot on. And it was no coincidence, Indigo, that we read that early on when we first started hyperdrive, because it really cemented the idea that we're going to cover a lot of weird and strange stories on here on the show, and don't take what I'm saying or what I'm presenting as absolute fact. Do some of your own research,
because that's a position. Right? That's now a position. And if one adopts that position of yours, then one has now begun to close off the widest breadth of objectivity that there could be. Right. And one has now begun to create in their own mind aspects of this that are not based in anything real in the outside. Now one is creating supporting dogma, if you will, to support that position that one began to adopt, right? And now we're getting further and further away from that outside reality, little by little.
Yeah. So that was providence that we dove into that document early on, because it has really helped me to be careful and but always be open to information as it comes in, and you know, and I will look at stuff and I'll go, well, this person said this, but you know, this sounds so much more, and I use my bias, you know, and personal knowledge, if I have it, of the situation, and I'll look at something and I'll go, you know, this just over here, this just seems to have more validity than this one does. So this is the one I will try to present. I may reference back to this one a little bit, but say, okay, well, this one, this version says this, but this, and now I tend to go with this one because of these, you know, and I'll point out certain factors that are relevant, that are my biases, I guess you might call it. But saying,
but one wants to be careful not to feed that egregore internally. Mm-hmm. And you know what I mean? It becomes a little thought monster.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I have the definition up here if anyone's interested. It's only like 4 bullet points.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, an egregore is formed whenever 2 or more people come together in common thought, belief, or perception. Acts of dedication to that thought or association and ritual feed the egregore, which exists in material, astral, and celestial realms. And we're mainly speaking about how it can exist in our minds. Mm-hmm. It is not always clear to initiates or general members the actual intentions of forming and perpetuating a specific egregore. So what that means, to my interpretation, is one might absorb or quote unquote get infected by an egregore and not even know whether it was even intentional or not. It might have just like gotten into your head. You might not even, it might have been purposeful. You might have created it, one might have created it oneself too. Mm-hmm. So then they go on. And this is probably the best thing, the best takeaway to tie it back to what you were talking about. Egregores can be dispersed without continual boosting of thought energy, although they can then be revived again. So that means be careful what we feed in our thought processes and in our minds and what we reinforce, and try to make sure that as we have a concept or a belief or a thought, that we're continually determining whether, that we're continually validating whether it's worth feeding that thought concept or egregore or not. And if it isn't, if we can't justify it, then we might want to question the actual belief itself and say, well, wait a minute. I kind of sort of have been living with this concept for a while and it seems okay, but I really, when I come right down to it, there's so little out there that actually validates this. And my goodness, you know, I was just brought up the Wuhan virus a while ago, and I could bring in so many things about that. Like, where is the validation for what we're being told? Yeah. And so many people have made it their own personal egregore. Mm-hmm. And they're doing it collectively, which is even more dangerous. And I'm not trying to take any position one way or the other on that. I just, you know, I'd like to. I would definitely like to. All right.
Of not definitely not taking a position. You could almost go as far as saying that, you know.
Right.
But you know, and that's the part about having an open mind on these things. And to answer your question, Shelley, no, I have not heard anything more about the WikiLeaks drops. There were some that dropped, but our understanding of those, they were the ones that dropped originally. There's none of the new ones have dropped. At least that's what's crossed my sight picture here in the last few weeks. So I'm not aware of any of the new ones being dropped yet.
So I have one more little tiny thing to add, if you would allow me to, on egregores, and it's very short. It's very brief, and I just want to pose this little challenge to everybody out there. And folks, would you feel that groupthink is more trustworthy than your own? And if so, why? Because we do deal with a lot of, crowd mentality, a lot of that. So what is it about groupthink that would make you think that that's more valid than what you think yourself? Just a question.
Are you asking chatters?
Yeah, anybody that's interested. I mean, there's the collective, there's the group. It's comfortable in a group. There's safety in numbers. Individuals in and of their own self might feel somewhat disoriented or lost without a group to connect to, or they might be afraid of making a wrong choice. But at the end of the day, it is the individual who will live with the ramifications of whatever choices they made. The group really won't be there to help you so much if the thought choices that one makes happen to not be correct. So just saying, groupthink might almost be something that we should try to resist. Doesn't mean we can't be part of a group, but it's perhaps something to first go to one's own internal validation mechanisms and use those to the best of one's ability, and then see if it still blends or agrees with a larger group. It's tough, it's tough for people. You got 1,000 people all believe something and they're all wrong, and you walk into that room with 1,000 people and you stand up and say, hey, I think this. Well, what do you think's going to happen? It's not going to feel real comfortable, right? Even though they're all wrong. Like that's one room I want to get out of quick.
Oh yeah. It's something you just have to be watchful of. And I mean, you don't want to be so open-minded you're wishy-washy, but in this world, in this existence that we have, you only know what you know. And basically what I know is I'm sitting here at my desk. There's a coffee cup in my left hand and my mouse in my right. And I have a video screen in front of me, and if you, let's see, what is it?
Which is virtually real, but you can't really touch it, right?
Right. And then you go to the what is it, the Schrodinger's cat? Is the cat, you put the cat in the box, is the cat alive or dead? You open up the box and the cat's alive, but close the lid. What's the cat? Is the cat there? Is the cat alive? Is the cat dead? Does the cat actually exist? Until you open the box and expect to see it there, and you're creating the reality, right?
Right.
So,
well, the reality becomes real at the moment that you observe it. Then that, but only for that instant. Only for that instant. Mm-hmm. Because as soon as you look away, that could change.
So, my reality is I'm sitting here at my desk having a conversation with somebody, through a series of wires and electronic circuits that's on the far east coast of the country from me. You're really getting into some really mind-bending thought processes there as to what is real, and is it real, when you're not there? I mean, if you're not there to observe it, would it be there? You know, you say, well, everybody else will see it. Well, yes.
Apparently.
How do I know that?
Correct.
Because I'm the only one that perceives what I perceive.
Right.
Yeah.
And in that sense, it really is kind of a solitary world. And it's really nice to be able to connect with people, but one should relish the concept of connecting with other people, but never at the sacrifice of one's individual perspective. And those with whom one associates with, it would be, in that sense, really quite a blessing if all of those individuals had the same kind of a spirit about them. Yep, I love talking with you, and I'm me, and you're you, and I really like this, and I'm not gonna, I'm just not gonna be, as you said, I'm just not gonna be waffling all over the place. And we're, that's where the real richness in human interchange occurs, is when there is some difference. I mean, if it's all one flavor, it's all monodimensional, what's that? We don't even need to talk to each other because we already believe all the same things. We already think the same things, see it all the same way. There's nothing dynamic happening in the interchange. And we've been literally programmed in modern society. Believe this, conform. This is what you should do. This is what you should think. This is what you should. No, that's taking away the richness of human experience.
No, I and that's why, it's fun to drag out these articles and read through them and get a feedback. I mean, I could sit here and read these all day long and say, well, this is what I think, and this reminds me of this, blah 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 blah. But have somebody else to bounce off of is it's so much more enjoyable, and the breadth and the depth of the subject matter, I think just it expands 100-fold. So let's see. I see a lot of people in the chat tonight are they're going down memory road here. Everybody's going, where's Dead Cat? Dead Cat's sleeping right now, I'm sure. Oh man. So anyway, to kind of get the show moving along here, how about we dive into that article that I sent to you?
Yep.
And
right up in front of me.
Okay, I'll put it up on the share for everyone. Okay, there you go. And,
all right.
Hey, tell you what, you want to start off reading on this? I'm going to go grab a quick cup of coffee, and I'll be right back. And so if you want to pick it up and start.
Alrighty. And alrighty then. The title of this, which was found in Bibliotheca Pleiades, which is a difficult word to pronounce, which is literally a cornucopia of all sorts of information, that once you get in there and you start looking through the various subjects and the way that they connect, you could literally spend days going through what's in Bibliotheca Pleiades. And I've enjoyed it. And I have literally spent hours and hours upon hours going from one article to the next. Anyway, this one is entitled, it's from December 23rd, 2013, and it is entitled The Ongoing Battle Over the Material and Spiritual Realms. What is matter and what is spirit? And I'm thinking, I kind of wanted to preface this a little bit with, for a person who's very concretely grounded in the matters of the day and the logistics of getting from today to tomorrow and all of that, this might seem rather removed from any kind of reality that matters. And in some sense, it does, because it's a little bit abstract. But I think you might find, as we get into it a little bit, it kind of brings up some questions, some interesting ones. And I wanted to just offer this, which is what is real to us is what we decide we're going to give importance to, what we choose. You and me and every one of us can choose and decide whether this is important or whether it's relevant to you or not. And so it's important now, especially now more than ever. There are forces, I'm going to mainly just call them media forces, that are out there constantly trying to frame our perception of reality in a particular direction, into what, for whatever reason, for whatever their grand scheme is, that they want it to be. And so it's just so important. Yeah, I think we can get the link out there. Yep, I got it. Hold on one second. Hang on. Here we go. Coming right up. See if I paste this in there for you. Okay. There you go. So yeah, we love to get together with our family and our friends and discuss things and pick and choose and talk. And it's really, it's just a very good idea for us to continually be going about that process of, well, why are we thinking about this? Why are we thinking this is so important? Are we looking at this and focusing on it, or being made to focus on it? And there's a whole other big picture out there that we're not paying attention to, because we only have so much thought energy time to dedicate to anything, and this is what we've been focused on for some reason. Anyway, so we will put this out there for you tonight, and I'm sure that we can go back and forth quite a bit, and I will start off reading it. Roman numeral 1, the hologram makers. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in Greek tongue is Apollyon. In previous levels of learning, as well as in this fourth level of learning, we discussed how star races were concerned that humanity soon will be able to travel in space. And if we don't evolve, we will be a danger to the rest of the galaxy. This was one of the reasons, according to this author, Wes Penray, December 23rd, 2013, one of the reasons for the deluge. And now we are facing the same problem again: extinction or survival. Okay, and I think that you probably can relate to that with our current industrialized age. It goes on. Although there are benevolent star races in the KHAA, and I confess I would have to look that up to know what it stands for, who are concerned about our behavior and want to stop us before it's too late, there are also less benevolent ones who are sharing the same kind of thoughts. We're talking about star races, or extraterrestrials, if you will, who are on Lucifer's side in this cosmic play. And personally, that would make a lot of sense to me, that there are, at whatever level you want, whether it be in the town of Poughkeepsie or in the United States or in the entire galaxy, there are going to be forces for good and forces for the dark side, if you will. It goes on. Many of these star races are getting very concerned that we will escape the trap en masse. If we do, they think that we will come after them. And they know that with extended perceptions, we are much superior to them, in the sense that our fire is burning higher, faster, and more furious. However, once we humans are free from the trap, we will not become like them. And this is what they don't understand. Why? We are not a violent species when we are free from indoctrination. Very important phrase there. We are not inherently a violent species when we're free from indoctrination and when we can be ourselves. That's me extrapolating on. And our purpose would not be to go to war. This shows how little they understand humans in general. They may have manipulated us genetically. They may have turned off the majority of our DNA. They may have learned how our bodies work on a more scientific level, but they still don't understand our emotions. Interesting. Our emotions are our downfall and our blessing at the same time. They can be used against us, but we can also understand others better because of them. This is why we got the emotions in the first place. It was mainly so we could understand and communicate with nature, of which we are a part. Boy, I love this, Thumper. You know that it's tying in some really good stuff. What is it to be a human?
Exactly. Yeah. And and it speaks to our free will,
Mhm.
and through free will, we can choose to either follow the laws of the universe, which are universal laws, okay, that make everything work. That is creation it's what makes creation work. And if you don't have creation, it's always been my view that if you don't have creation, then you have destruction, and if you have destruction, then you're going to end up with nothing.
Yep.
So
well, again, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but it's my opinion that we are being coaxed, coerced, brainwashed, or conditioned to leave behind certain aspects of our humanity, and some of them are vital. We are being coerced into becoming more programmed, automated creatures as we go through our days, and there's so much around us that kind of drives us in that direction. And I don't think that ends well. I don't think that it can even really be done to us permanently either, by the way. I think that our let's say that were done to a generation or to many of us for some period of time. It's my contention that our spirituality would come erupting back out and make its presence known in us as the balanced human beings again at some point. But in the meantime, we could go through some pretty dark days, while we're being coerced and conditioned. And I think we're at some level of that. Now, I don't know. What do you think?
I think that that's what we're seeing right now is that people making that choice, that free will choice, to disconnect from those that would take away our free will and our ability to decide what our next step is going to be, and then take the big one is taking responsibility for that step, and knowing that you're going to have to take responsibility for that step makes you think through the process just a little bit more. It's like when you buy your first car and you've paid, you've gone and shopped for it, you've saved the money for it, and you're going to take much better care of that car as opposed to maybe the one that mom and dad gave you for your 16th birthday.
Right.
All right. Because you have a stake in it.
Skin in the game.
Yeah, you have skin in the game, and that's always so much more important than the other. Now, if you want to be lazy and you want to kick back and live in mom and dad's basement all your life and live under mom and dad's rules, and they're fine with that, how many people choose to do that? Unfortunately, in my opinion,
too many these days.
Yes. So it's stepping out and taking full responsibility for your actions, which if you think through those actions and those things that you do, you're going to have to weigh not only the pros and the cons when it comes to your own self, but you're also to others around you, knowing that you do not have the right to negatively affect those around you. So you have to take in, everyone else that could be affected.
Oh yeah, you've hit on something really good here. Let's say that one evolves over the course of their childhood to young adulthood in a state of responsibility and in a state of recognizing and appreciating the energy, commitment, and work that it takes to achieve anything, to arrive at anything. Well, when you then interact with somebody else, you're going to have an inherent level of reverence for whatever and whoever that other person is, because you're going to say, well, I know what it took to get from point A to point B, and I don't know this guy, but you know what? I'm just going to give him free rein and say, you know what? Wherever you're coming from, I respect it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're lucky, that other person has also gone through that same process. Okay, I've got to mute something here. It has also gone through that whole same process, and then that meeting is one on a ground of some level of mutual respect.
Mm-hmm.
But when you bring up a whole generation of people who have been given and I'm not picking on anybody, because it's not their fault that they were given or that they didn't have to go through some of this arduous process of growth and building, one's levels of character and responsibility. But when those people get together, they haven't got that base of reverence or respect because they never got there themselves, kind of, sort of. Does that make any sense at all?
Absolutely. It definitely makes sense. Why is it that the flyover country in this nation is so much more red than it is blue? Why is it the major population centers where you have people stacked on each other and stacked on each other and stacked on each other? Because it's always been my contention is when you separate people out of their own accord. I'm not talking about 6 feet. You have to be can't get 6 feet because you might give something to this person over here. It's having your personal space and then taking responsibility for that space as we do in the flyover country, where you have a lot of people that live rurally. And in a rural situation, you only have those things that are immediately available to you to deal with anything that comes up.
That's right. And
so you have to be resourceful. You have to be resilient. You have to, there's just so many more things. And so you see these young men that join the military, they come out of Kansas and things like that. They seem to have more of a grounded responsibility, not only to their neighbors, because if my barn burns, then my neighbor comes over and helps me rebuild my barn. If his barn burns, we go over and help him.
Exactly.
But I don't go over there and tell him he has to paint his barn.
If by some extension flyover country means farm land, agricultural stuff, well, one thing is farming is hard work. And one of the old and I'm not a farmer. I just respect them, okay? Because in my own sphere of reality, I've worked hard too. So I'm not a farmer. I don't know it, but I do respect it. Farmer would say, if you can't grow it and if you can't build it, you don't need it. You're not going to have it, okay?
Pretty much.
Very, very resourceful. Very, very much on self-initiative and taking full responsibility for the survival of their crops, their livestock, their home, their family. And you know what? They're not looking for anyone to come along and rescue them if they miscalculate.
Right. And if you need something from the store, that's the exception. That's next Tuesday when we make the trip to the store.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to learn to get along without it until then.
Yeah, really good points. And our agricultural, our farm people have not gotten the level of respect. My goodness, they feed the whole country, if not half the world. All right, they haven't gotten the appreciation and the respect, in my opinion, that they have deserved,
mm-hmm.
in my estimation.
Absolutely.
But that's just me.
Well, that's so when we start looking at these things, I mean, what's the one thing that these people want to do? They want to take away our free will. They want to give us everything that they decide we need. Why do we have an aversion to that? who is it? Again, who are you to come along and tell me what I don't need, as long as I'm not stealing it from you? If I'm earning it, if I'm building it, if I'm purchasing it through my hard labors and things like that, then that's my decision.
Certain forces around us, and it's almost multi-generational now, have worked to nurture a kind of a culture where if you didn't work for it, you can still have it anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, people steal things, and that's okay. They get away with it, and this and that, and fill in a few more blanks along with that. So guys, that's the new normal. Nope, all stop. That's not the new normal. No. That's just plain wrong.
Absolutely. And then you come to find out that they're actually stealing from those that are working for it to give to those that don't want to work for it.
Yes.
And that's like, getting kicked in the nuts and the mouth at the same time. So, that's the problem with, what we see going on these days, that these people are so bent on having such dominance over everyone that they're totally ignoring and denying people their God-given gift of free will, and taking away the responsibility, which is that in itself has become a problem, because people have not learned how to be thoughtful in their decision making. They've lost the concept of being responsible for themselves, because somebody else is going to jump in and do it for them.
And not naming the specific forces involved, but certain forces have worked to inoculate and worked hard to inoculate many in our population with that, yes, you guessed it, egregore, okay, which is a belief that, yeah, that is the normal. It is okay. It's all fine. Opulent social support programs are just the way it should be. Well, somebody's got to pay for that.
Yeah.
Right? That's not sustainable in the long run. So, but a lot of people have been given that thought pattern and have adopted it, and it doesn't sustain. It won't work in the long run. We know this.
All right. Well, how about I take up the next couple of paragraphs here, and let's
sure. Yep.
Okay. When the new Namalu walked the planet, I'm not sure what Namalu is. Let's follow that link, and it's okay. It's taking me to the same page here, and I don't know where I don't see it. Oh, Ka. Here's the Ka. The Mother Universe, also called the Void, which is the 96% of the universe science can't explain. This is the home universe of the Mother Goddess, through which you travel when you enter a Stargate after have shrunk yourself into nanosize. This is the fastest and easiest way to travel between stars, galaxies, and universes. Okay, so that's what they're referring to as Ka. But this whatever. Namlu. Okay, the primordial human species, the guardian earth, and the living library. They were created by many different founders and had the fire of the Ka. They were androgynous and lived during Earth's golden age. Okay, so that's the definition of those.
All
right. They could understand and communicate with their entire environment. This was their purpose as guardians of the living library. Many think that this was done telepathically, but it was not. It was done by thought. I don't mean that they were thinking something and the plants and the animals picked it up. That would be telepathy. but I mean that these beings connected with one of the inner sanctions, but not the inner sanction of the void or the ka where thoughts reside. I'm going to have to take some time to decode that one.
Kind of have an idea where they're going. They're connecting with the physical world, and they're connecting with it intimately, but they are not accessing they're not accessing the collective of where all thoughts reside. It's more the tangible world, I think, is what's being said there.
Yeah. By intentionally turning into that section of the void, they could instantly make themselves understood by their environment, including all the elements: air, water, earth, fire, and ether. In the first paper of level 1, okay, this is one of the documents, explained how this works on a subquantum level by introducing LPG-C's, Life Physics Group, California, subquantum research, which partly consists of ET science.
Wow.
Okay.
There's actually a group, the Life Physics Group in California.
It would be California.
Yeah. we love California.
I love California. Fun. Kind of like a kitty cat with toilet paper. Anyway, in that paper I wrote about the thought superdomain that surrounds our universe / multiverse, which they call the unum. Okay. This is the level which the primordial womankind turned into, and when doing so, they could also understand species who visited our planet. This was, of course, crucial, because if they couldn't read these beings, they wouldn't know which knowledge of the living library that being was in need of.
So this paints the picture of primordial womankind as nurturers and supporters and facilitators of knowledge. Well, that's wonderful. I think women are wonderful, by the way.
That's interesting. Because one of the documents I read here a while back explained that, the female force is the energy that drives things. It's the male force that provides the knowledge.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And
the how-to. The male force provides the how-to. The female force provides the concept and the energy, the impetus for anybody to do anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's through the combination of the two that you have creation. All right. And
so without men, there would be, and I'm not saying it's not possible, but there would be less of the phenomenon of women being able to actualize building this or doing that. Yet the concept and the energy and the impetus of it comes from that female energy, and then it utilizes and helps to direct the more linear, target-oriented male energy to go get it done. But without the female energy, the male energy might not know why he did it. But the female energy provides some of that definition, the reason to do those things. Maybe. I don't know.
Purpose, yeah. And so when you look at society and you kind of break it down, that makes a lot of sense to me. It has some validity in my book. So
mine as well, very much so.
I'll go with that.
And once again, we could get into another offshoot discussion for probably 15 minutes about how the confusion of those naturally suited, almost naturally endowed abilities or capacities of the female energy versus the male energy have been confused to some degree in our society. And it's making it less efficient for them to interact and help and support each other to the best benefit of both. It has made it harder.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm sitting here looking at the comments in chat, and when you said endowed,
God, let me go look. Let me see what they're saying.
Well, Cornbread 13, you said the word endowed, and I looked up and I saw what Cornbread 13 has up there for a Jeff.
Okay. Okay. Oh my. Cornbread. All right. My answer to that is going to be this. Okay. If you must. All right. Goodness gracious. I think we were on a good track before Cornbread distracted us, but we should get back to it. But it's very true. The nature of the differences between the female and the male are there based on naturally. I mean, really, totally, well, not totally, but somewhat and distinctly different structures of mind and body. And nature is really smart. It does things for a reason. And when we're not working in harmony with nature, of which the member of the opposite sex would be part of nature as we are, then it's probably not going to go so well, because to some extent we're fighting nature, and we shouldn't do that. We should work in harmony, and that means work in harmony with those other creatures that we find around us, which are somehow vastly and magically different from ourselves.
And why do we find that this entity, this thought pattern, this process of dividing and then trying to redefine the purpose? You know, we see them redefining the purpose of women, which is more of a male type of role, as opposed to the nurturing role that women have. You know, their gift from the Lord is what they are,
is what makes them them, right? And yes. Like who what upper authority has any right to come in and say, no, we're going to redefine this? What? You're going to redefine what is naturally the way that we're all created and built, and in my view, created in the infinite wisdom of the Creator.
But whoever did that was wrong. They're totally
it's ludicrous.
And and you're not thinking for yourself if you're believing something that's you're so predestined to this. What happened to your free will? And the pervasive arguments that it does capture the imagination until you drill down a little deeper into it and see what that actually does to society as a whole. It rips society apart. And we've seen that. I mean, the original Bible story, Adam and Eve.
Mm-hmm.
Started that division. It sets the basis for it, in my opinion. And so, so when we deny that natural part of creation that we are, then we're denying God's creation. So
I have words of hope, thoughts of hope and thoughts of caution at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
They've been working on our society for a long time, working on it for decades to undermine, to start to erode and dissolve some of the natural foundations and underpinnings of it.
Mm-hmm.
And one might think that if they've been working on taking our nuclear family apart and our society apart and putting it into confusion for, I don't know, let's just say 7 decades, that it's going to take 7 decades to put it back together again. No, here's the good news. It's not going to take that long. All that we need is a perspective on what's been done. And then we merely, collectively and individually, we make that choice that we are going to say, no, we are going to go back to our natural roots, to our natural capabilities. We're going to take back our own power. Mm-hmm. We're going to reject your narrative, and I'm going to make my own choices. And we can do that in such a short time. And this is one more aspect of what I call the time for the Great Awakening that I really feel is happening right now. Once the awareness gets out and once people get a clue, you can't stop it. We're onto it. We're onto the game, aren't we?
Oh, if we can only just, find it and follow it and learn from it. That's the trick.
Yes, learn.
And that's kind of what, by reading a lot of different materials, getting some different ideas, going back and looking at history. I love the saying, those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it, right? And so if we don't learn that, beating your head against the wall gives you a headache, and so you never make the connection between beating your head against the wall and the headache, you're going to have headaches every time you beat, and it's you don't learn to stop, in other words.
Right. And there's a variant of that I'm going to misquote, but I'm going to stumble through it anyway. Those who do not learn history are doomed to not learn the lessons that history could have taught them. And they will make either the same or other mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep. I wanted to address something that Buster Keaton put out there. And he wrote, some women feel that being nice means letting perverts control society. Well, you know what? I would just want to support all of the women out there who are within listening voice. Women are powerful. You have power, and under no means, under no conditions should you surrender the natural powers that you have. And you have a responsibility to use that power because you've got a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I want to throw that back to him.
Yeah, no, I've mentioned that numerous times. Women are extremely powerful because, remember what we were talking about. They are the energy that brings things into being and then follow through.
Yes.
And I mean, men are very capable individuals, and
oh, sure,
and that, but men have to, we like to have a purpose in life. Yes. And in the gift of the female is one of the things that gives us the most deep. I mean, when you have that, I mean, that female can bring another life into this world. I can't. Two guys can't, but a man and a woman can. And therefore, what is the greatest thing about that we can create? And I've said this for years. You can build all the buildings. You can have all the most successful buildings.
You're taking the words out of my mouth. This is the example. Yeah, do it. Go for it. We're tracking exactly here.
But it's the prodigy you leave behind is your true mark on this world. All right. And that prodigy, the children, are the children of our ancestors are the reason we're here now.
Right.
And if we had forgotten that, then we wouldn't be here. And
you can get a whole bunch of guys together, and get some Caterpillar trucks and get some D10s, which is a big monster bulldozer. And, we can do we can build a bunch of bridges and buildings. Do you ever stop to think that if we didn't know why we were doing it, after we got through building all that stuff, we might look over our shoulder and say, scratch my head. Why did we build all that stuff again? Right? Because there's a higher purpose, and we only come up with that higher purpose when we acknowledge literally the other half of the human race and combine the purpose together into one. And that ties into your one's there's a word for it. It begins with an E. One's legacy, not an E, an L. One's legacy, one's progeny, how we've left the world, the enduring impression and mark that we've made in this world. And those are really big things. And it's not so many of the superficial things that we're distracted by nowadays. It's much deeper, much higher purpose.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, think of it this way. President Trump, Donald J. Trump, very successful businessman, billions and billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it in his speech, he had, he had a wonderful life. He had a very successful life, but, he decided to do what he's doing now.
Right.
And it wasn't because he could protect his properties or his buildings or the infrastructure of the United States. It's what the United States brings to the people that founded this country, and the people as a collective, we the people, being in charge of it and taking full 100% responsibility for what this country does as a whole. All right.
Yes.
And that, in a very large sense, that's what we've been talking about all along this evening. And that is, when you take all of the people and you give them responsibility for all of this, there's that little piece that you call your house, your home, your business, or whatever, that you have direct responsibility for, but you also to support that and to support the, your heirs, so to speak, so that they will have something. We have an overall responsibility to all of it. And we can't just, put blinders on and stay in our lane and no, ignore what else is going on.
Two kinds of responsibility. You triggered another thought in my mind. Mm-hmm. Two kinds of responsibility: individual responsibility and social responsibility. Mm-hmm. Somehow it also seems that we have been coerced into thinking that all that matters is social responsibility. And not only that, we're accepting somebody else's narrative of what shape social responsibility should take. Well, social responsibility would, a non-corrupted branch of social responsibility would spring naturally from a good, solid sense of individual responsibility. Mm-hmm. Because one would look at oneself and be self-respectful, and then automatically would look at another person and expect to see that they had been brought up in a similar way. So now we have two people who both have individual responsibility, and they look at each other and they say, well, I'm not going to go and burn your barn down. I just had to build mine, and it took me 3 months. It's that kind of thing. So they've kind of shortcutted the whole thing. It's running down individual responsibility and getting someone else's narrative for exactly what social responsibility should be. And I think that is artificial. It's not organic, and it has no grounding in one's personal experience. Or what should have been one's personal experience. Maybe I'm going off into the weeds there, but I know I had a point. I probably failed miserably with it, but I tried.
That's all we can do. Look at the following list of things they have done and created in order to entrap us. Then ponder in wonder. And number one here is the grid, and I clicked on it and didn't really go anywhere. Number two, Tween Lives Area, the BLA. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of feeding into the idea of the reincarnation. Where do you go while you're waiting for the next incarnation?
Okay, I'm glad you clarified that. That had me befuddled.
Okay, amnesia. Okay, and that is not all of us are Shirley MacLaine, and we can remember our past lives. All right. Okay.
Right.
And that has been designed into each life experience. Okay, so that you can't. I played this game before. I know what's going on here. Invest in ABC. DNA reduction. Okay, this is the idea of manipulating the DNA so that in this experience that we are in right now, our DNA they've said that, you know, there's certain parts of our DNA that aren't activated yet, or whatever. And and if those parts of our DNA were to be activated, there would be other, you know, there may be a whole new frequency spectrum, light or sound or whatever. We don't know what it is because we don't.
Sure.
I'm
Sure. Thumper, electromagnetics that our DNA actually act as transmitting and receiving antennas for. We've got some scientific basis to show that that is real to the structure of DNA right now. But are we aware of it?
Well, I'm an AM radio and I can't pick up an FM signal. Okay. Okay. I was built as an AM radio to kind of put an analogy to it. You know, but that circuitry is there. It just it needs to be activated. So that's you know, the DNA, and these what they're saying here, DNA reduction. This is another biblioacapulates.
Ooh, this looks like good stuff. Get me going on this. Wild.
Noma. So, you know, here's a whole another index of, you know, our DNA and RNA and all that other stuff. So, you know, they're just saying there's a lot here, guys. All right. Reduction of our perceptions to include only 4% of the entire universe, a tiny piece of the electromagnetic spectrum, which we call visible light. Well, what we call visible light is that part that we can perceive. Right. And then through lies and manipulation.
And this is all under the heading of the following list of things that were created and contrived in order to entrap us, to put us into a small picture, a small box of reality.
They want you to put they you know, and in the process, they have convinced us that you know, we should you know, build our own gilded cage and then happily roll into it. You know, and close the door.
Yep. Right.
So,
and somewhere deep down, if anybody were to think about that, the first thing that you'd think of it is, oh, gee, it's all cushy and fluffy and warm in there. It's so nice. But, you know, you're going to get tired of it after a while, and you're going to want to venture out. You're going to want to go back to that once in a while. But we are not, we're not healthiest when we're contained in a small envelope, number one. Number two, we may like it, but we like everything. We like to be out, we like to be in, we like to be at home, we like to be exploring the real world, the great outdoors. We are not built to be either intellectually or even physically in a small box. That's not what we're built to be. And we all know it deep down. If we granted, some people would rather be outside someplace where it's warm rather than someplace where it's cold, like where I live. But still, you want to be able to spread your wings. It's natural for the human condition to want to be out there somewhere. It's the whole thing.
Yeah. And then the last thing they have in the list is population reductions. Okay.
Ooh, boy.
That is you know,
scary.
Well, you know, it's a lot easier to herd 15 cats than 500 cats.
Right.
Okay. And so, you know, they just don't want too many. You know, if you think that this is quite impressive, it is. Still, we haven't really talked about the major thing that they have done, which is the main entrapment, senior to any of the above. The 7 items I listed, however, are tightly connected to in a subordinate fashion to what we're now going to discuss, the holographic universe. Okay.
Wow.
Can we talk Matrix? I am sure that almost all readers have heard about it, and many probably have studied it to quite some extent and have been wondering when Wes, that's the guy that wrote the article, is going to bring that up, if at all. Well, now is the time. I have based the previous 3 levels of learning on the LPG-C working model. Okay. And the universe, according to the Orion Empire, the Orion model. Okay. And it gives a link here. And let's take a look at that link real quick. The Orion zone. And so all those things, all articles having to do with Orion. And, as where I believe they're going with that is the aliens who are in popular belief thought of as coming to Earth and having
been here. Right.
Okay. And that's several different species of aliens that have been talked about. I can't remember one specifically, but both these models are accurate models, although that of the Orion Empire is more expanded, only because the AIF, who LPG-C were connected with, just revealed so much. Okay, so this is this group in California, I guess have been
right, the life physics group. Yes,
life physics group. All right, I'm not suggesting that what I've written about in relation to the Orion model is a perfect model, because again, I am limited in my own understanding of the multiverse, being a soul in a limited human body, but it's enough for our purpose. Okay. Do you want to grab this next paragraph or 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever?
Possibly, yeah. What I'm finding on my Zoom screen is it's blurry, and every once in a while it blurs out when my speed goes down. So let me just get it on a different computer. Let's see here. I'm just trying to find out exactly where. Okay, 1, 2, 1. Oh, I think I know where we are. Okay, back to the planet of power. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. The reader will have noticed that the planet Saturn has been mentioned frequently in my papers as a very important planet for many reasons. It has been highly worshipped throughout history, especially within secret societies, so-called black magic, satanic rituals, evil spirits, demons, international beings are all called up. The magician can then make a pact with the entity that shows up within the circle and the pentagram that is drawn on the floor. He, most frequently a male, thinks that by getting power from the entity, he can rule, get riches, women, whatever he desires in exchange, and he sells his soul to the demiurge, Leviathan/Satan, after death. This is the most commonly told version of a satanic ritual. Saturn was also Prince Ninurta's planet during the Golden Age, before Lucifer and his fallen angels came. It had a stargate connected to it, which probably connected to many different locations in space-time and time-space, such as Peshmeten, the commercial galactic highway, and to the gates of the Orion Empire. According to the Pleiadians and others, there is a stargate in Orion's belt as well, and perhaps the two connect. The raw material discusses the Council of Saturn, which consists of a council of elders who decide who may enter our solar system and who won't be allowed. During the Golden Age, I've been informed that there was a council of sorts at that time too, but it consisted mostly of Mi'kmaq warriors who guarded the gate from intruders. Once Lucifer took over, he either created the rings of Saturn, or even if he didn't, and they were already there, he placed an interdimensional council in the rings. I've still got to mute something over here. Hopefully that wasn't too loud.
No, it's...
This council is still there and has a similar function as the Mi'kmaq warriors of Ninurta's Golden Age, with one important exception. They are the ones responsible for the third dimension. Really get out there with this. The Ra people from the Ra material call them the Council of Saturn or the Council of Nine.
I need to ask you a question. Are you familiar with the
Order of the Nine.
Well, the Law of One.
No, I'm not.
Okay. That's one of the piece of material that was supposedly through kind of a they communicated with this Ra by having this woman who could they put her in this room, and they got her all relaxed and everything, and she had to be oriented in a certain way, and certain little items had to be close by and whatever. Okay. And then this Raw personality would speak through her,
embody through her. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I've heard of this slightly.
And these two other gentlemen recorded this whole affair over several months, I believe, where Ra presented the Law of One, and they were able to ask questions of Ra, and then Ra would answer the questions and things like that. And they came up with this Law of One, and it's been published in a book. They say that they documented it as scientifically and as accurately as they possibly could. And so when they're talking about the raw material, that's when Ra was doing this, right? And he talked about these extraterrestrial
life entities,
or
essences of intelligence, or however you want to refer to them.
Right. And so that's what he's referring to in this one. And see, it says here, the people from Ra, the raw material, call them the Council of Saturn or the Council of Nine. This is in this raw material session, Don Elkins, that's one of the gentlemen that was overseeing this and recording it, asks the question as usual, and the channeled entity replies. Questioner: who are the members and how does the council function? And Ra always starts out, I am Ra. The members of the council are representatives from the Confederation and from those vibratory levels of your inner planes bearing responsibility for your third density. And according to them, we live in a third density in existence. Mm-hmm. And there are different densities, like animals are at second density, we're at third, and then the other densities, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on, are achieved
by varying levels of consciousness, or different, existing in different dimensions.
Well, let's put it this way: once those other strands of our DNA are activated, and that's that controls what we perceive. We have now moved to a higher density, to a fourth or fifth density, or sixth or seventh, whatever. And as you move through these densities, as your perceptions and your wisdom, your knowledge, your life experience, because
awareness expands,
your awareness expands, and because each one of those, you become just what that life entails is I hate to say it this way, because
it just has a lot more in it. It's just full of a lot more stuff that we don't even know exists now,
compared to our existence now. I mean, the idea of being able to travel via thought rather than having to need a vehicle, the understanding of more of the universe, the more understanding of our spiritual nature, it comes into play. all of these things, a greater understanding of the universe and how it works. All right. It's just naturally, comes with the activation of that DNA. Basically.
So to ground this a little bit in something that's concrete and here and now today in 2020, there are laboratories that have done observational experimentation on DNA. It doesn't have to be human DNA, but it certainly could be ours, that show that DNA have varying many more frequencies of being able to resonate and conduct and transmit and receive on than is required at all for DNA to do its chemical job in our bodies, if you know what I mean. So DNA is the chemical programming for making all the proteins and the structures of our bodies, but it has a whole nother level of functionality that has been observed and shown in laboratory experiments that give credence to some of what we're talking about when talking about activating DNA. Just and throw that in there.
And the interesting thing is, if you look at the Masonic orders, these secret orders, they talk about, you're a 12th degree Mason, or 15th degree Mason, or a 33 degree Mason, with being supposedly the highest, where you have achieved certain knowledge of this, secret geometry and all this other stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they also, at the same time, they use it to enslave and to manipulate those
who are unenlightened.
Unenlightened, yes, great way to put it. And so, but in doing that, what are they doing? They're usurping the free will of those that they inflict that upon, right? And that's against rules, to be quite simple. It's just, that is a misuse of that ability and or responsibility. It kind of goes back to the movie, this Spider-Man movie, with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you become knowledgeable, that's why, so many people, why did they so malign Tesla? Because Tesla didn't care about money. Tesla wasn't there to try to build the next great weapon so he could wipe everybody out. What he was trying to do was build, come up with something so that, one of his biggest things was a dome, a way of, if I could build the perfect fence where I could enjoy my neighbors, but if they ever came at me with knives and guns and baseball bats, they wouldn't get through. And as such, the idea of aggression towards one another, just, it's not, I am protected, so you can't get to me. And likewise, the same with you. So if everybody's instead of this mutually assured destruction that we have now, you wipe us out, we'll wipe you out. Well, how about, if I have a fence that's so, perfect, you can't get through it, and you can't get through mine, vice versa, then what's the point in even trying?
Right.
And that was more or less Tesla's attitude towards things. He wanted to help humanity, not figure out ways to destroy humanity through, newer, better, improved weapons.
He was all about experimentally discovering truths, mathematical truths, energetic truths, and he was motivated also with a certain amount of philanthropy. I think he really did want to help better the human race, but his passion was in discovering and uncovering and experimentally reproducing some of these things that were mysteries that we didn't know about. And he was brilliant.
Oh, he was absolutely, yeah. I love when they, the saying that when they asked Nikola Tesla, or not Nikola Tesla, when they asked Albert Einstein, how's it feel to be the smartest man in the world? And Einstein's answer to that was, go ask Nikola Tesla.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, wasn't that humble of an awesome mathematician like Albert Einstein? Wasn't that humble? Shouldn't we just think, that this guy, as brilliant as he saw somebody else and decided to pass it on to them?
Mhm.
That's beautiful.
And the thing was, and what was in many ways Tesla's downfall was he really didn't care about the money.
No, right. Because
And
if he did, somebody would have tried to make a deal with him and say, well, all right, I'll let you have a little piece of it, but we're going to make some big money on this. Are
Well-
you in? And Tesla would have said, no, I don't care.
And that's, when he went to JP Morgan and his idea for being able to transmit energy without using wires and things like that,
Morgan didn't like that idea because you
No.
couldn't put a meter on it and charge people for it.
Exactly. And as such, Morgan wouldn't help finance his project.
Yep.
Okay. So,
Thumper, we have 48 minutes left before the end of our show. And if I might be so forward as to suggest to move to item 1.2, which is the Magicians of Time and Space, there's some really interesting stuff in there.
okay. Yeah.
Trust me, I think I know what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
Trust me once, see how we do here.
Oh, go ahead. You want to open it up there?
Yep. All right. So the subtitle of this, The Magicians of Time and Space. By some, they have been called the Anunnaki. And these people usually claim that the Anunnaki are the originator of magic, the master magicians of time and space. It's also alleged that Anunnaki lived on this earth at one point in ancient history as well. I leave that up to you. Although this sounds to me like a joke, in one way it is true. The AIF created the distorted third dimension, but just like the Archons, they can't create something out of nothing. They may be scientists in a copycat kind of way, but they are not artists. In other words, they couldn't create something that wasn't there. They take something that's already there and manipulate it, often to something less than the original. Examples are, if the original were beauty, they would create ugliness. If the original were powerful, they would create weakness. And if the original were stable, they would create something unstable, and so on. So in this case, we had a full universe to play around with, and most dimensions were available to us. And this, we did skip ahead a little bit, but this is in also referring back to the idea that most of that DNA and most of those capacities that we actually are naturally endowed with are not in play for us now in this current reality that we're all living in. But take heart, because they're all still there. They're just not in play. And it's going to be up to us to activate all that again. So it continues on. In this case, we had a full universe to play around with, and most dimensions were available to us. We were part of an experiment that we agreed to, and which we loved playing in because it was about nature. In the middle of a functioning experiment, the AIF came and shrank our universe by 96%. And that became our new universe, our limited universe. In this universe, they kept us imprisoned on a small planet in the outskirts of the Milky Way galaxy. And that became our universe, our little world, this little blue ball floating in space. Whereas the suggestion here is that we are actually creatures with far broader capacities of consciousness. But we've been limited to this little blue ball in space. Excuse me. On that little planet, we let a small number of extraterrestrials tell us what we can and can't do. We let our free will, quote unquote, be determined by these beings, who in fact were strangers here. They didn't even belong here. Many New Agers say that the global elite, and I think you all know who we mean by that, and the extraterrestrials who are in charge of them are reflecting their own level of consciousness. And this is the important part. We are in a poor state of mind because we have done bad things in order to deserve the global elite who are controlling us. So we kind of bought into it somehow. Not until we change our mass consciousness will the global elite change as well. And we can indeed, because of our numbers, we can force that to happen. And it's a good forcing. It's a benevolent forcing. These New Agers further say that no one individual can be free on his or her own. We have to work on the mass consciousness to be free. And that's important. We do have individual sovereign powers of our own, but they are limited. And once again, by that example of, okay, you've really honed in on truth and virtue and wisdom, and you put yourself into a room of 1,000 other people, and they're in complete opposition to you, it won't get very far. They will, one way or the other, they'll either get rid of you or they'll convince you or something. So we need to do this as a collective society of humanity. And it can start in small groups. So it goes on. In other words, this whole mess started with we human beings doing unethical and criminal things. And then we pulled in the elite. This probably sounds familiar to those who have read Hidden Hand, who claimed the same thing. However, he is far from the only one saying so. Now, I would say that this is nonsense. This idea probably comes from the global elite or the alien masters themselves in order to keep their own hands clean. I can hear a familiar Luciferian voice in the background saying, "Don't attack us. It's not our fault. You were the ones who asked us to control you because of your own behavior. We're just your catalysts." The readers know the story. Humanity lived in a golden age, and then an alien invader force descended and started a war here, whereafter they started trapping human Namlu souls into third-dimensional human bodies. And this is just me talking. If you give any credence to the idea that there are other dimensions beyond 3 dimensions, which our leading edge physicists are telling us is practically a certainty at this point, and if you give any credence to the idea that if you can conceive of a world beyond this little blue ball in space, if you can conceive of the wonders of the universe, or if you can conceive of the concept of, let's say, a beautiful world, a world that's literally a paradise, a heaven that could be, if you can conceive of it, then it's probably out there somewhere. Because we don't create things out of total nothing. We're drawing from the collective consciousness. This is me talking. The collective consciousness and the collective wisdom of all eternity of the entire universe and what it's made of. That we tap into that when we create something. We're tapping into our higher self that is pulling it from elsewhere, and probably one of those other dimensions. So it goes on. In light of this, how can the New Age hypothesis be correct? Someone is trying to make criminals out of the victims, although I don't like using that word. I just want to set the record straight. Who is the criminal here? Is it the person who storms into a 7-Eleven store and starts shooting people? Or is it the person who got shot? Of course, then we have all this talk about co-creation. Channeled entities suggest that in the between lives area, the BLA, souls make agreements with each other in order that they can help each other to evolve. It may go something like this, quote, "I will be the bully in the next lifetime and treat you really badly so that you learn how to become stronger and how to say no." The other soul replies, "That sounds good, Arthur. I'm with you." Although agreements may sometimes be made between souls and the between lives area, This has been taken to the extreme. People starve to death in Africa while flies are biting them and sucking their sweat and blood from top to toe. And instead of having compassion for these people, New Agers say the Africans deserve it in some twisted way because they need that experience in order to evolve further. And the author says, what I see is a very dangerous path where people stop caring for others because if people are in trouble, they need to experience it and they should be left alone. To the defense of those who have such ideas, however, they still think we should help, but only if the person asks for it. I agree with that part. People sometimes do need to be left alone to reflect over their situations, but we need to use discernment.
That is a great point. I love that paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
Really hits home.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's tough love, but there's not just barbaric lack of compassion.
Correct. Yeah.
You know, discernment, wisdom, trusting your heart.
How many times, like if you're driving down the highway and you see a car pulled over to the side of the road and they've got the trunk open and a tire off,
mm-hmm.
right?
Stop and help.
And you stop and help, or you go, they've got a cell phone, they've already called AAA.
Yeah, you can say that. Mm-hmm.
You find yourself, doing that in this day and age where you have instant communications. Everybody has one. Just I hardly know a person. My mother one that doesn't have a cell phone, but it's one of those things where which way do you go? How do you do that? You take the time to stop just to make sure that is there anything you can do to help?
But look what's happening when one distances oneself from involvement by rational. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's true, but making the rational thought. They've got a cell phone. They've called AAA. What that's doing is that's separating us from other people. Mm-hmm. That's not having. Now, granted, the person might be doing that, and they might rob you and take your wallet and be armed. You don't know what might happen, but in the current environment that we live with on this earth, and I think it's pretty much all over the place, all countries, not just here, a lot more people are fearful and withdrawn and withheld and reserved, and that's interfering with our ability to connect with others. Now, there may be good reason for it, because there are a lot of nasty people out there that mean to do you harm, right? So once again, it comes back to that one word that begins with the D, Thumper: discernment. It's just, yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help us. It really doesn't help us to build a kind of a global community of support when we're walking around with so much fear and concern and worry. And again, what's the latest? Over Christmas, we experienced a whole lot more social distancing than I ever would have dreamt possible in my entire lifetime. Yeah. And what did that do? That created more separation, more distancing. And I think that it's harmful at many levels in our society, and I think we're going to need to step up our skills of discernment so that we can still connect with other people, but be intelligent about it.
Can I also throw in something else that I kind of noticed? Did you notice that if it weren't for all of the drama surrounding what's going on in our country right now, did the Christmas season seem a lot less frenzied than it has been in the past?
Yes.
Okay. Did you miss the frenzy?
No.
Did you miss the commercialization of it?
No, not at all.
So, in that, I think there's a lesson. I don't know how many people got it, but I think there was a lesson in that in a lot of ways, because, Christmas is, they turned it into this frenzied, their Christmas sales, and you got to have the Christmas decorations. You got to do this. You got to do this. All of these things. When it came down to it, what was most important about it? And I think what a lot of people came to the realization of is, and that was family getting together. People were telling you don't go to grandma and grandpa's house. When you bring the gifts over to, your cousin's house, stand outside and set them on the porch and ring the doorbell and run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Traditional family gatherings, over hot cocoa and a bowl of chili or something like that. And some families, like ours, we said, screw it, we're having our Christmas Eve chili dinner. And we did. We got together and we had a wonderful time. But there wasn't a frenzy around it. And it was nice. People actually stopped and talked and had a conversation with each other. It was actually really one of the more pleasant, gatherings I had with my family in quite some time.
Well, if nothing else, for those of us who are so inclined, it gives us an opportunity to reflect on what is important. Mm-hmm. My particular Christmas was much more isolated than that, mostly because other people were so worried. Mm-hmm. But something else is that during the time of this, let's call it a quiet time in our country over the last many months now, there's been an opportunity to do more as it's been quieter and less busy, that we haven't gotten around to for a long time. And I've done a whole lot of that. Mm-hmm. And it makes one question, why are we all so busy running like crazy ants from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next? That's not all so necessary. Mm-hmm. So it's been a great time to observe how our lives can be different. Mm-hmm. So to that point, to that extent, I kind of go with you. But I'd like it even better. I'd like it even better than it is.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Oh, let's see.
Mike, and it's what I see, a very dangerous path, because if people are in trouble and they need to experience it, they should be left alone. You'd be on the next sentence. My concern is that.
Okay. My concern is that someone is trying to sneak a new set of moral codes into society. Mm-hmm. Everyone is on his or her own with no help from anybody. In the extension, this is possibly what could happen. I want to give a heads up on these things because they may sound good to a certain extent, but watch out for hidden plans behind the scenes. Always. There's always another agenda behind the agenda that's behind another agenda. Constant alertness is what is important. Don't stop trusting people, but learn to see or read the red flags. Very important.
Exactly.
Yeah, very important.
That whole thing is very well phrased for the world that we're living in right now.
Absolutely. Never stop caring and being compassionate about other people. That is so important. And see, and that's, there's a video going around of this woman who she's reached the end of her rope. She's in a grocery store and she decided that she's not wearing a mask anymore. She's just, ain't going to do it anymore. And she's confronted by one of these Karens. And this Karen is going, well, don't you care about other people? You could be getting other people sick. So, they're using this compassionate argument to tell this person that you might be sick. And this other person is saying, no, I am not sick. I am not. And besides, the numbers and the scientific proof says that people who are asymptomatic cannot pass this thing on. You want to see the documents on it. So get off my case. Mm-hmm. And but they're flipping this compassionate thing around on you and using as a bat to beat you with. And this woman rejected it and said, no, you don't even know what you're talking about, because asymptomatic they've actually done tests And I read one of the arguments, the articles the other day. 10 million people in Wuhan, China, have not been able to infect each other. The rate is it's so minuscule they can't even prove that it actually happened.
And look at the population density there.
And that's where it all broke out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So there's more to the story here. Being compassionate is one thing, but how you display it. Compassion is also feeling for this person who has absolutely no desire to put a face diaper on. All right.
But compassion goes both ways too, right?
Yeah.
Shouldn't the Karen be compassionate of the sense of the other person, and at least listen to them a little bit before firing off at them verbally?
Oh, and the Karen didn't even go, well, I'd like to see that information that you've been, here's my email address. Could you send that to me? No, she just kept up with her, programming, which is what it is.
Right.
You to go after this person with no regard to this person's free will, this person's individual sovereignty, and says, you must join the crowd. If you don't join the crowd, you are not one of us.
and that's because the Karen chose to believe another source and gratefully took the inoculation of the egregore and adopted that belief and never really made that, well, maybe did, and maybe came to a wrong conclusion or a very dogmatic conclusion, but most likely it came from just adopting a belief from outside because of overwhelming media, screaming it at them.
And ultimately standing on, in my opinion, very, very shaky ground. Okay. And that's where, when you start trusting others to make your decisions for you and to tell you what is without doing at least minor research into it before you stick that face diaper on your over your head.
Right.
I mean, are you just going to just,
Well, it's really sad for the Karen, because the Karen has decided to let someone else control the priorities of their behavior and to some extent live their life for them and set the priorities.
And
that is the domain of Karen, whoever she is. Karen, set your own perspective on things, and don't do it by belief. Do it by what you decide yourself, and it'll all be better for everybody if you do.
Yeah. But she's convinced that she is being compassionate by forcing this other person to comply.
The popular argument is, and you can't even combat it with the ineffectiveness of those cloth masks. It is, if it even stops 5% of the risk of people cross-contaminating each other, and if one of those 5% results in one life being saved, then it's worth it. Now, how would you deal with that if that's what was put toward you? And let's say the Karen launched that at you and she did it rationally and not emotionally. How would you respond to that?
Well, first off, being a guy that loves my firearms, I would say, they've used that same argument with the firearms. If it saves one life, they will take your guns away from you. If it saves one child's life, that you have all the guns in your house taken away. If it saves one, but every time they've taken the guns away, what has happened? Millions of more people have died from tyrants who took advantage of those people who weren't able to defend themselves. So if it saves one, don't even come there with me with that argument, because that's how they took guns away in so many other countries. Yeah, I'd blow it out the water with that. That's where I would go.
And then, because you're dealing with a person who operates on belief rather than rational logic, the person is going to make a choice. They're either going to choose to believe you or stay with their existing belief system. So it's almost as if the best way to get at it is to just try to get people to start actually thinking for themselves. Right? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
she'll just say, "No, I don't believe you," and she'll go back to her old thing.
Well, at that point, I look at it again. You're only required to do so much, and then after that, you've fulfilled your moral obligation to say, if you're thirsty, there is a drinking fountain right over there, and it works. Okay, I can't take you over there and shove your head down into it and make you drink it. Okay, I'm just changing up the horse to water.
Yep.
But okay, there you go. You can choose to go drink your water if you're thirsty or not, but now you know where it is.
Right.
Okay? And so have a wonderful day. And step away.
Yeah.
You've done your moral duty. And
so then it's a matter of terminating the communication with them, and you go off and they do whatever they're going to do. And one might ponder whether one has been effective in modifying that person's worldview, even in the slightest.
Well, if the person is going to totally reject you and is not going to ask, if that person wants to ask for more information, I'd spend all day there. But if they're going to,
yeah, sure. Yep.
If they're going to respect, if they're going to keep throwing out the canned responses, the canned phrases, when you start, you get to about the third one that that they've been programmed with, you could bring up the point, I'm sorry, but you're obviously listening to everything that you come out with, you've responded with. I've heard from 40 other people who think the same way you do. Why do all of you think the same?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a good one out in chat. Mustang Mary wrote, all you have to do is figure out how to make the horse thirsty. Problem solved.
Yeah, there you go. And and she makes a great point, because that's, asking questions, getting them to open up and actually be honest. Just don't ask too hard a question, because then you'll be an ism or an ist.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I mean.
Yep.
You're a racist. You're a you're a Nazi. You're this. You're that. Then when the personal attacks start, then you go. Then you point out, I'm sorry. I'm not attacking you personally, but your last comment there was you're attacking me personally. Why are you doing that? What do you hope to achieve from that? Because
that individual is operating at a borderline emotional level already, and that's a higher energy level than the rational process. Usually it can override the rational level of discussion, and one's job also is to bring it back down, if it's even possible with such a person, to bring it back down to just a thought, rational, logical level. And it's very difficult not to respond with a counter volley that's emotional when someone fires one of those at you. It's hard.
Yeah, that's the young married couple.
Really? Yep.
Anyway, okay, I'm gonna get back to the read here.
Sure. Yep.
Never stop caring and being compassionate about other people. Definitely, you have compassion for these people who are the Karens and the Carls, because they just haven't taken the time to get better information. Now, what about AIF being magicians that we talked about? Yes, in their own way, they are magicians. The AIF, alien invading forces, I think is what that meant.
Yes.
Know how the hologram works, and they know what tricks they can play with it. They can suddenly show up in a place as reptilians or even as humans, talking, socializing with others, only to suddenly disappear in thin air. They can show their spaceships in the sky so a whole village can see it, and then they just disappear in a ball of fire. They can do a lot of tricks because they know that they are dealing with illusions, but we don't. We get upset or excited when these things happen. Has anybody thought about why Lucifer is called the light bearer? It almost makes him sound benevolent and nice, doesn't it? Light bearer. Yeah, that sound, the light bearer. He brings light. Yeah, okay. Does it mean that he is surrounded by the most magnificent light and can say the words, "Let there be light," and there will be light? Or does it actually mean that he is the only one who is bearing the little tiny spectrum of light that we humans are able to perceive?
Mm-hmm.
If this was a $10,000 question, I would vote for the latter. Isn't that what Lucifer did? He brought light into the world and the universe as we know it. Let there be light. This is why so many worship him. Without him, we would be blind and fumble in the dark. In that case, remember that the light we perceive is only 4% of the electromagnetic spectrum. What about the rest of the spectrum? Why are we cut off from that light? It doesn't look like light to me, you may say, and stare out into dark space, and from your limited perceptions, you would be right. The universe is teeming with life, but the very majority of it resides in what we call darkness. What we need to realize is that this so-called darkness is just other frequency bands, and when we are able to perceive them, it's no darkness there anymore. They shut off our DNA. The DNA, which when activated, can experience the rest of the spectra as well. So much for the light bearer.
Mm-hmm.
These entities who are guarding us to make sure we don't regain our abilities without them being in charge, ready to capture us, can have a lot of fun with us and our miniature reality. Just like a little boy has fun with his train set that his dad built for him. The AIF, however, don't feel any empathy and compassion when they are playing. And for us, their game has been deadly serious. It's time to disagree with this seriousness and tell ourselves that getting out of this silly trap is easy. Put the AIF over there and then go in your own direction. Do it in your mind.
Yes.
Then live your life as you want it to be and take some consequences if necessary. That's where anybody out there in the chat, what do I say? What have I been saying? Throw away the box. Don't live outside the box. Don't think outside the box. Throw the damn box away. The box is what's holding you back. Heidi Johnson says, I like my pretty box.
Oh, I see that. Yeah.
But how much prettier is not having the box? It's everything. It's all of it.
How about the sentence prior to that? It's time to disagree with the seriousness. We're once again, we're being coerced and programmed with seriousness on the left, seriousness on the right, serious in the middle. And is it really all that serious at the end of the day? Maybe, and I'd listen if someone wanted to debate the point, but that's where discernment comes in. What is serious and what's not? We're being overdosed on seriousness with the news and current events lately. Wouldn't you agree? Sort of.
Mm-hmm. Epiphany 75. The Bible is a box. You say? Did I say that? Did I say the Bible was?
No. I did not hear you say that, sir.
I did not. So who's living in the box now? Oh, goodness sakes.
No, I'm your witness. We didn't term the Bible a box.
No.
No, we did not.
The AIF, however, don't feel any empathy or compassion when they are playing. Okay, we read that part already. Okay.
Yep.
What has always been your passion? Do it. And what is just as important, teach your children this. When you and I grew up, many of us had no clue what consequences certain actions had. We got some money. We bought a house and a car, on credit, of course. We got married and our income increased, so we bought a bigger house, leading to more debts and so on. Almost everybody made this mistake, so we never thought something was wrong with it until we started having trouble paying because of so-called inflation, which is made up of is a made-up term built on a lie about the value of money, supposedly reflecting the value of silver and gold that are stored in vaults somewhere. These silver and gold reserves justify the printing of money. Then, whoops, there comes the magician again, and there is no reserve. Money was just an illusion, but we still need to pay. Because you agreed to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone always gets rich on other people's misery. Instead of coming in a hard situation where your hands are tied, a part of slavery today, where you have to work for the system until you die in order to pay your debt, you teach your children to never, ever buy anything on credit and always go for their passion, wherever it will lead them. If they do, they will be just fine. And they will have a much better chance to build a life which is not so dependent on the system. Think of it. Mm-hmm. Would Donald J. Trump be in the position he is right now if he hadn't followed his passion in the business world and grabbed it and ran with it as hard as he possibly could? Could he actually, follow his other passion, which was his love for this country and serving this country the way he is right now?
Nope, he wouldn't have been able to.
Wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah.
I or you or anybody out here could be the other, just like Donald Trump. However, we don't have a couple of $1 billion that, because in a world where these people respect money and power, he represents money and power because he's been there, done that. But he has resisted their invitations to join them and become our problem. And he is up there right now working to, teach us.
The idea is that if one follows one's passion, the money will come. If one makes the top priority just making money and you throw your passion out the window, then you might make some money and you'll really not be so happy because deep down in your mind, you know that you're not following your passion, and probably it won't go as well in the long run. In the short run, it might be okay, but if one then uses that money, the fiat currency that we use, and gets in debt, well, that's just the beginning of the downward spiral, of never getting out of that enslavement to the money system, because it is an illusion. Mm-hmm. Whereas, let's say you wanted to buy a house and you decided that you were going to buy, and say you even decided you were going to collect silver until you had enough that you could get that house, and you bought it with no debt. Well, you'd have the house. Now all you have to worry about is the local town that you live in and whether they tax you out of affordability of it, because taxes are another issue. That's another problem.
Well, that's going to go away too.
It's just, you got to be very wary of getting caught up in the system. But the biggest mistake just about all of us have made is putting our passion on the sideline and made that a hobby and made a primary objective of each and every day making money at the quote unquote job. And I've made that mistake. I don't know who hasn't.
No, we all have. And, there are certain things that we basically have to do in this world if we want to get past the age of, 5 years past the age of 21.
Right.
You're kind of play the game, right? But there's ways to play the game and still not lose your soul. So,
funny thing about money, in and of itself, it's really nothing. It's a tool. It's a tool where you can use it as an amplifier for your purposes in your life, which hopefully involve your passion. And if you're not using it, then it's just a dead tool. It's not doing anything. And you got to always keep in mind, while it's sitting there inactive, it's also depreciating. Mm-hmm. So if you don't use that to help you realize the higher purpose in your life and just try and save it, that's not a good way to go.
All right. We've got a few minutes left, and I think we can get to the end of this article. There's like four or five paragraphs here. Okay. These silver and gold reserves justify the printing of money. Then whoops, there comes the magician again, and no reserve. Money was just an illusion, but we still need to pay. Someone always gets rich on other people's misery. Instead of coming in a hard situation where your hands are tied, a part of slave. Okay, I think I read that part already. If they do, they will be just fine. Okay. Explain to your kids what is really going on in the world, little by little, so you don't overwhelm them. Also, don't only tell them, let them experience it. Let them see it, hear it, taste it, smell it. Only then do they know it's real. Children grow up in blindness only because the parents are blind. There is no one to guide them, and there is no one to tell them what they can do to get a rich life. Most people think that living a rich life means having a lot of money. Yes, money, but can buy you freedom to a certain extent if you use it for that purpose. But the true richness is what you can find within yourself, and the best of it all is that it doesn't have to cost anything. And on that, I got to step away for a moment. I'll be
beautiful. Right. That's beautiful. Yeah. You'll be back at some point. There was a little jewel in there that I never really thought of before, which was that it is highly likely that if parents are somewhat blind, then their children are also going to inherit some of that blindness. And we're not here to preach about how to raise kids, but certainly letting kids experience the realities of the world close up and personal helps them to grow up as well-grounded and realistic individuals. So we have a little bit left of this here, and I'll just read just a little bit more. So there were references made to Saturn, and Saturn being considered Father Time. And he is the one who decides how long the eons should be: the year, the month, week, day, hour, minute, and second, linear time. Now, this is an interesting point. Once we humans have agreed that we live on a timeline with a past, present, and future, we lose our multidimensionality. And that's a really interesting thing. It ties into some things that we're discussing on another show. Not here to plug any other shows, but we certainly get into this quite a bit. And it is that at the frontier of quantum physics, at the highest level of existence of reality, it actually doesn't obey time. And so take that nugget and now tie it together with this nugget, that there are aspects of our own molecular biology which also exhibit quantum type effects. In other words, they don't obey the laws of time. And now tie that together in synergy with the first point, which would mean that there is a part of being a human life entity that does not need to, although our bodies are, but doesn't need to live in linear time. In other words, it's timeless. There are parts of our bodies right at the very molecular level, right down to our DNA, that do not obey the laws of time. And that's highly significant because at a macroscopic level, we go through days, hours, tick, 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 got to do this now, got to do that then. And yeah, I mean, that works. That works in our daily lives as we go through them. But one neat thing to maybe ponder or meditate a little bit on is that there is part of us that is, it just doesn't, there's a part of us that probably will, I don't know, depending on your religious belief, it will span on beyond the end of your biological life form when it eventually wears out and fails to operate anymore. Physics is telling us that there are aspects of our right down to our molecular biology that do not obey those laws of time. Mm-hmm. So that just might point toward, and some of these physicists and scientists have even almost they've grazed right onto the edge of the idea that there has to be some sort of a prime mover, some sort of a creator, and it is most likely a timeless intelligence force. And this is coming from physicists. This isn't coming from sages and philosophers and religious theologians. This is coming from the world of physics. Rather significant. Isn't that cool, Thumper?
I'll tell you, the world that we are on the precipice of moving into once we break free of the control that has been foisted upon us through our own ignorance, our own
well, it's been hidden purposely from us by some who have the power to be able to hide it. I would grant you that. I would say
also,
that.
And I think there's also an aspect of it too, Indigo, is that what is clear to us now, I don't think we realize how almost incapable we were of being able to see what was actually happening. Groupthink, programming, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Because the evilness of it, the nefariousness of it hadn't become quite clear. We knew it was possible. I mean, it's like a gun. A gun it can be used for good, bad, or it can sit there inanimate for years and years and never hurt anybody. But as soon as it's picked up, then it's what happens as a result of that gun is solely reliant on who's pulling the trigger. And we forgot that. We went for the pretty face. We went for the these people who we either got careless or lazy, or we were totally bamboozled.
We're numbed into a comfort zone, Thumper. There are certain forces, once again, those forces that kind of run the world and set the priorities. They've made it very easy for us to be comfortable. Didn't Pink Floyd have this lyric, "Comfortably Numb"?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. And I might just ask if we see reality, are we ready to sacrifice our comfort for the greater good of having a knowledge and an acknowledgement of reality? Because that's the stronger position to be in. And that's the one that opens the door to our freedom going forward.
I'll take the freedom.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are now just a couple of seconds away from the top of the hour. So, Indigo, thank you again for joining me tonight.
Oh no, it's you. Thank you for letting me join you. It's really I've really enjoyed this with you tonight.
Well, I know it's kind of a sacrifice for you to stay up late on the East Coast there and to do this, and I want to just tell you I really do appreciate having you here. This is a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, sir. This is important. What's going on at Patriot Soapbox is very important work, and any little part of it that I can do to help that is good.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've uploaded the last show that you joined us on to my YouTube channel, and it's getting incredible hits.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. Within 24 hours, it was almost up to 200 hits, which on my YouTube channel is pretty awesome.
Man, that's cool. That's really cool.
So
Thank you again. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you. All right, folks, we're going to fire up the TR3B and get ourselves back to our point of departure. So buckle up, sit down. There's this big old semi truck that's barreling down on us here, so we need to get out of his way. And so here we go, guys. 3, 2, 1. Buckle up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for another session of Hyperdrive, and we'll see you in a couple of hours. Indigo, again, thank you so much. And you guys out there in live chat, you make sure you thank Indigo, because he stayed up late to do this. And so thank you so much. And it's Mr. Rooster Cogbert rolling in the big old shiny semi. Good evening, Rooster. How you doing?
Good morning, Thumper. Good morning, Indigo. Good morning, everybody out there in the United States, around the world.
Yeah, man.
Finally got somebody on the East Coast with me, Indigo.
For a couple minutes anyway.
Oh, yeah. You're shutting down for today. I'm getting started. Oh, man. Well, welcome to We Ride at Dawn, Patriot Soapbox, looking at the world of trucking and logistics. I am your host, Rooster Cogbert. Yes, I am 1 year older yesterday.